Welcome to the A to Z of licensed games, a series of vids about games that take something from something else. We're now at C, and thankfully for all involved there's still plenty of decent material to mine through. This ain't gonna last, believe me. Anyhow, this vid will be the first surrounding Mickey Mouse, and it probably won't be the last either. Some licensed properties tend to get a pretty fair shake of the stick. There was Batman in the last vid, and later we'll have the likes of Indiana Jones and Star Trek to think about, and Mickey's another one. And so C is for Castle of Illusion. Sega brought this one out for the Mega Drive all the way back in 1990, and it ended up being a fairly important title. In the days before Sonic and blast processing, this was one of the key titles that defined the Sega Mega Drive. It was right up there with Revenge of Shinobi, Strider, and Phantasy Star 2. Castle of Illusion looks the business and plays every bit as good as an 8-bit game. It's what the Mega Drive's all about. In fact, it's still one of the best remembered Mega Drive titles. There's no better proof of that than the presence of an official HD remake, set to arrive later on this year. But just what was oh so special about this game? Well, for a start, just look at it. Before Castle of Illusion, a lot of MD games had felt a little bit like souped up Master System titles, especially when you compared them to this. The frickin' parallax scrolling is out of this world, and the backgrounds are just lavish and gorgeous. The game was a technical marvel. For once, the advertising blurbs weren't just hot air. There was no way in hell you could do this on Nintendo. And so naturally everyone went on and on about those glorious graphics. However, it's held up today because it's a belter of a game as well. Mickey's quest to catch all the gems and rescue dear old Minnie from an evil witch is oh so very endearing and a joy to take on. The controls are utterly accessible, to the point where anyone could pick them up. It might look like a 16-bit marvel, but it plays like an 8-bit classic, albeit one that's a little slower paced. Your mileage may vary on that one. The levels feel like proper worlds with tons of variation in the enemies, some fine boss fights and a lot of secrets. If you let yourself dive into the game, these levels will give up a lot of stuff to you. In short, Castle of Illusion has all the elements you would want in a timeless, classic, vintage platformer. And on the whole, it's just a very relaxing game. It's a fair bit harder than World of Illusion, the game's sequel, and one that we'll likely see in the very remote future, but it's still more likely to ease your nerves as opposed to fraying them. Castle of Illusion is a Mega Drive classic, and this is a Mega Drive house. Therefore, it takes out the letter C with ease. But don't fret, because many other good games will soon be available. I gotta admit that this vid was a pretty close one. There's a couple of classics here that could easily have taken the Mickey mantle. None more so in fact than Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. When this game came out in the arcade, hot damn I absolutely loved it. In fact, me and a friend went down there with a freaking bag full of 20p pieces and we went ahead and finished it. It got to the stage where I would go down the seafront just to play this game, and this game alone. Well, now that we've got MAME and unlimited continues at the push of a button, was all that money simply squandered when it could have been spent on sweets? Hell no! Just what a game this is. Capcom made many good beat-em-ups, but this will always be my favourite. It's an absolute corker. I can't believe it's never made it to the home machines. One beat-em-up that did get a home conversion, however, was Captain America and the Avengers, a Data East effort from 1991. Now this wasn't an absolute favourite of mine, and it isn't now, but it was always one I'd usually play if I went past it. It's not much of a looker as far as arcade beat-em-ups go, but it does play quite nicely. You should play it too. There's no reason why it shouldn't go well. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES is another strong title. It's a neat little example of all the things that made a good 8-bit platformer that I was talking about in our featured game. Castle of Illusion continued the line set by games like this. What's more interesting though is that from this game sprouted one of the best bootleg games ever made, Squirrelkin, a platformer for the Mega Drive. All bootleg games are crap, are they? Hell no they aren't. This one's proof of that, it's bloody good. Next is something so odd that it may as well be a bootleg game, Chex Quest for the PC. Now licensed games based on cereal or other types of food aren't all that out the ordinary, but when they're first person shooters, well that's different. In fact, it's a conversion of freaking Doom. Doom is still the best FPS ever made, by the way. Has never, will never be beaten. Just thought I should tell you that. Anyway, as far as this game goes, yeah, it's alright, but I certainly did want to mention it. Now what else do we have? Chuck Norris for the C64. Yep, it's a Chuck Norris game. Doesn't that make you want to dig out all those old Chuck Norris facts? My favourite one is, Chuck Norris is so strong that he's a racist creationist pile of Bertha human excrement. Sorry, changed the mood a bit there. This game's actually kind of terrible, but I thought I'd chuck it in here because it's too basic for the shit room. And finally we have one of Ocean's best tie-ins for the Spectrum, Cobra. They're the disease, you're the cure, and you've got to treat them in all manner of ways while collecting weapons. Most Ocean tie-ins are generic side-scroller minigame affairs, but this is different. It's got a real arcade buzz and frenzy about it, and even a little bit of a sense of humour. You won't find many tie-ins on the specky close to this one, frankly. Ladies and gentlemen, the crapper awaits. Let's go back to MTV. It's the late 90s, it's 11 PM, and what am I watching when I should be in bed? The Tom Green Show, probably, followed by Celebrity Deathmatch. Yeah, well, don't expect me to apologise for my teenage sense of humour now. If you've never had the pleasure of watching Celebrity Deathmatch, then let me fill you in. It's basically crude claymation figures of celebrities wrestling each other. And that's it. All the genius of the show was in the window dressing, the subtle interplay between commentators Gomez and Diamond, the witty interjections from Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mills Lane, and of course a prodigious amount of entrails spewing forth all over the arena. Yeah, it wasn't particularly high class. Well, fuck it, I laughed, and I still have good memories of the show that I'm not about to spoil by watching it again. Naturally, the show made for perfect tie-in material, and so a game was released for it. It came out for the PS2, amongst others, in 2003. And, well, it's a bit naff. So you have a bunch of early noughties vintage celebs, some remembered, some not, and they all have about 4 moves each. There's no music, no atmosphere, and certainly no humour. The presentation is just awful. The commentators and Mills Lane make an appearance at least, but that's kind of it. This might well have been a complete throwaway budget title, but that shouldn't matter. Let's be blunt, this game doesn't go far enough. To have any chance of being good, it needed to immerse itself deep into the complete trash culture that the show represented. Flashing lights, ridiculous jokes, cutscenes, stupid musical interjections, gore, more gore, all the fun of MTV. It needed to risk being even shittier than it already is, but it could have paid off. As it is, it's just bleh, dull. And it's buggy as all get out too. I mean, look at this. Let's see that again. Let's see that again. Let's see that again. Anyway, I can pretty much tell that absolutely everyone working on this game hated every second of it, from the ground up. It shows in the end result. You just couldn't learn to love it, could ya? Bloody humourless gamers. This has most certainly not been a good fight or a good night. Okay, another letter bites the dust. The next letter, surprisingly known as D, will feature one of the best remembered licensed games of all goddamn time in the honourable mentions section. And a game in the shit room that I'm absolutely dreading playing for a second time. But until then, it's time to end. Thanks for watching, and wherever you are, whoever you may be, have a good one, take care, and I'll see you next time.